Hello and welcome to a new video. In today's topic we are going to discuss Joomla and how we can illustrate the decline of the once popular CMS in one chart. Okay, it's actually two charts, but that's beside the point. We could do this in one chart, but we were making charts in Excel, so we went a little bit crazy. Ask yourself this question: when was the last time you heard someone mention Joomla? On Twitter, I recently mentioned that all people talking about the CMS on the platform on Twitter were actually tied to the CMS directly, either because they were developing extensions for the CMS or because they're working for the project as volunteers. This led to a minor disagreement, which we quickly solved. And before I upset anyone, let me set something straight again, or for the first time if you didn't see the article or the tweet. There is absolutely nothing wrong with making money by building extensions or stuff for Joomla or WordPress or any other open source platform. After all, that's what open source is all about. It's all about extensibility and you having the freedom to do whatever you want with the platform. However, the reason I noticed it is because it's kind of a reason for concern all the same that the once popular CMS has now only become an afterthought for most people on social media, except for those for whom Joomla is their bread and butter. To the rest of the world, the Joomla project seems to be like a forgotten relic of the past or something they joke about when they talk about how awful PHP projects are. And it's hard to argue that Joomla is a technological pioneer because the latest major version was released back in 2012. But good news, however, a new version offering nothing really significant when compared to Joomla 3 will be launched in, well, at first it was 2019, then it became 2020, now it will be launched in 2021. Or perhaps they'll wait for 2022 because then they have waited 10 years to release a new version. Now, you may be wondering where this video is heading. If you read the blog post, you already know because this is basically me just summing up what I wrote there. Am I going to make a slam piece video on the CMS that I once named the blog after? Until I got a complaint and then change a bunch of things? Well, that would require an emotional investment of me that I'm no longer willing to make. But I do have time to make some videos. So let's go to the chart I'm talking about. I will be displaying it somewhere on the screen in post-editing. The first point that the chart will make is that Joomla peaked in 2015 and that their finances show it. Joomla insiders that I spoke to claim that Joomla peaked around 2015, and while there is no real written history of Joomla to back that up, I can confirm that it was the period when the Joomla world was pretty active on social media and everywhere, myself included. However, immediately after that peak followed a decline in popularity and relevance. And that has been confirmed to me by quite a few people, and who am I to argue with people that have invested money and time in Joomla and who can back it up by the sales of their extensions that is decreasing. Now, I thought it would be interesting to see if I could somehow find statistical proof for that, and my inner accountant nudged me into the direction of the OSM treasury. In case you don't know who OSM is, it's basically the non-profit behind the Joomla. And why did I look in the direction of OSM? Because the funds of the open source organization are directly tied to the popularity of the CMS, believe it or not. Because their income strongly depends on ads, selling tickets to events and sponsorships. And that was before you could pay for a certificate, of which I still doubt that it has value and that I will keep doubting as long as I live. So what do the numbers tell us then? Well, since OSM is a registered nonprofit, I was able to take a look at their tax returns and compile a table in Excel, the world's leading data analytics platform still, And billions of companies rely on it to put their data at risk, and they can be wrong, so I use Excel as well. Also partially because the LibreOffice version of Excel kind of sucks. You should be looking at the chart right now, and the numbers that you are seeing on the screen in the graph reflect the tax returns of OSM, the organization behind Joomla. And although the screenshot should be straightforward, let me try and explain what you're seeing. There are three fields basically. There is revenue, which is the income, which comes from a variety of sources, but mostly ads and Google ads, none of which are detailed in the tax return, so I can't give you any more information on that. And then there's the expenses, the money that OSM spent during a year. And then there's assets, which is the total amount of stuff that Joomla owns. It's mostly cash savings, as Joomla doesn't really have an office or equipment or assets like computers and stuff. As you can see, the revenue has been increasing exponentially from 2008 until 2015, which is where they peaked. And because of the initial hype and the grassroots nature of Joomla, we can see that OSM didn't have to spend a lot of money during those 7 years. And that is where they build up their war chest they are currently sitting on. And in 2015, which is the middle of the chart, the decline started. We can see that Joomla had a hard time adjusting in 2015 as they spent more than they made, but fortunately they still had the reserve to fall back on. But it was the start of a trend. Over the next years you'll see an average decrease of revenue of about 20% per year. If we ignore the fiscal year 2017, where some accounting wizardry happened that distorted statistics, they entered an incomplete tax return or something like that. I don't know the details, but it's all the way down from there with a steady decrease in revenue. Joomla has been able to drastically cut their expenses as well, which isn't a big surprise since they always kind of refuse to spend money on development or any other type of expertise that could have helped them to revert that trend that you're seeing. There is a certain charm in trying to do everything yourself, but maybe a marketing research report here or there would have been a smart investment to turn the trend around. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with assuming that your core target audience are developers who want to use Joomla as a competitor for Laravel, Symfony, or the zillion of other PHP frameworks, which was the direction that Joomla somehow went in around 2015. I'm sure there is a niche for that, but it's a very, very small niche which is probably limited to the few people who originally came up with the idea and saw it crash and burn. But that is not the post about how Joomla's lack of marketing savviness and not knowing their target audience led to technical decay, which is a completely other story. How you managed to not launch a new version in about 10 years is an interesting story, and I interviewed someone about it on Twitter, and maybe that's a story for another day. But this is a post about finances, so let's take a look into the past again, shall we? Sorry, I meant to say into the future. I am reading this from my blog post and I wrote into the past. Anyway, we're going to look into the future, and we're going to do that by applying some common sense and math. We're going to assume that the revenue will continue to decrease at the same pace and that Joomla manages to manage their expenses. And I mean, why wouldn't they be? Because they're obviously unwilling to invest to turn things around. And that they also manage to keep their expenses in the range of, let's say, 90% of their revenue. And then this is what the future descent into obscurity could look like. Now, if you look at that chart, it kind of looks like the Google Trends search for Joomla, but I have always been told that it doesn't mean anything. So if the future income prediction about Joomla also doesn't mean anything, then I am wasting everyone's time. But anyway, your expert analyst, that's me, expect Joomla's revenue to shrink even further unless they give the web market as a whole a reason to reconsider them over WordPress, which, and no offense to anyone, is an inferior product in every aspect that matters when you are really building websites, and to most site builders who are smart enough to know that page builders are hot garbage. We didn't add the asset bar for the next few years, but you can do that math yourself. The assets of Joomla would probably increase slowly over the next few years to around $450,000 when the chart ends. And they could use that money to, your guess is as good as mine. They will probably organize some events with that. I don't know. Now, if I were Joomla's consultant, which I'm obviously not, I would recommend them to spend a little money to answer some important questions, which they should have started asking a few years ago, around 2015. And these are actually questions that some people did ask and wanted to help Joomla with, but they refused because they were more interested in the ad money than in actual expertise, but that is neither here or there. The questions they should ask themselves is, first of all, who is really our target audience? I can tell you that it's not developers who are looking for another PHP platform. It is and was people who want to have a real platform to build a website on with amazing options like the translations and the modules and the ACL and the user management. And the extensibility. They should have marketed that product to those people instead of marketing it to, nobody. They're marketing it to nobody, and they lost the battle to WordPress, who somehow managed to convince everyone that their blogging system is better than Joomla and WordPress 1. It's as simple as that. It's done. It can be reverted. But, I'm making this article, so I'm giving the suggestions, useful or not. The second would be, what can we do better to reach a target audience? I don't have the answers either. They could have spent some money on advertisements maybe, or convincing influencers to create some hype. They could have hired someone to actually launch Joomla 4 years ago to keep the momentum going, but it's all done anyway. And the third question would be, what can we do to attract more developers, which is a true lifeblood of an open source development project? Because at the moment, Joomla is like 99% volunteers in non-development roles, and there's like 1% developing the CMS. There's probably like 4 or 5 people working on it, and the project is basically virtually, with all due respect, dead from a development point of view. It's going nowhere. You can give up the idea that you can see any technological marvels. If we even see Joomla 4 this year, it will already be kind of a miracle. And the final question that Joomla should ask themselves, considering that $400,000 they have in cash, is how many shares of Automatic can we buy with this money? Automatic, the company behind WordPress, who are making millions of their product. Maybe that's a good investment. If you're not willing to invest in your own CMS, maybe you can go to the number 1 and buy some shares there and profit that way. Now, I know that this video is going to be unpopular because it's tongue-in-cheek, but it's coming from a good place. Caring about a CMS that still has the potential, in theory, to be a great CMS which fills a unique position. But the problem is that the CMS, or the leadership, or the lack thereof, doesn't know it. They don't know who they are. They don't know what they want. They need a makeover. They need to turn things around. But all friends keep telling Joomla that there's nothing wrong with her personality, that her outfit that is 10 years old is just fine, and that every PHP developer would be lucky to date her. Well, it's simply not true. That was our video. Thank you for watching it, and I guess I should apologize for making you look at Excel charts and money stuff in relationship to Joomla, but maybe you found it interesting. Then let us know in the comments, or you know where to find us on social media. We are those people that aren't talking about Joomla for profit because we know that we will never make a single dollar of the videos of blogs we make. So we're completely unbiased and you can totally trust us. Thank you for watching, and we'll see each other soon at a new video.